One of the things that consistently comes up and I'm asked often is how much does it cost to build a house? And I've actually got a video which I'll put up a link into the description and a link up above this video, which talks about why that's a difficult thing to actually establish from labour rates being different in different parts of the country, material costs interestingly being different in different parts of the country, as well as the plants. And indeed actually many more other things go into that in terms of design, the type of house, the end specification and so forth. So it's not a simple process. However, in response to that, and because we teach people how to basically get into property development from finding the land to putting the keys in your customer's hands, we teach the whole process, and therefore we've got to make sure that people when they do that really end up with a viable proposition. And invariably what you will find is that when you look up for land that is on the market, it is overpriced. But how do you really establish that? And so what I want to go through here is just very briefly the actual process. So when we look at our roadmap here, without a doubt the most critical phase is the find it phase, and it's only in this phase that you will make or lose your profit. The others are important, but it's absolutely critical that you buy land at the right price. And so we have the first phase, which we call detect, which is really sourcing your land. But the second, which is what we're really going to focus on in this video, is what you do once you've found that piece of land and make sure that you have a viable proposition, which then makes sure that you have the right deal. So as I said before, we're just going to focus on the deal itself and actually establishing whether we've got a viable proposition. So when we look at this, let me just describe what this actually entails. The first thing that we always have to establish is what the gross development value is for a site. In other words, that's the end value. Think of this like a grocery store. It's the end price. It's what you pay as the customer. So for that can of baked beans, you pay this a certain amount of money. Backward from that, the manufacturer and the retailer has worked all their costs into that to arrive at a price that can give them a profit that allows them to sustain their business. And so the first thing that we do as developers is establish what those houses should I say, are going to sell for. So we're going to assume here we've got 4 houses, combined value is 1.6 million, and therefore our build profit, which should be at least 25% of gross development value, and we can actually go in, not in this video, but in terms of how we actually extract a much higher figure than that. However, for the sake of this example, what we would call our build profit, we would want to have 25% of gross development value, which would be 400,000. And therefore then we deduct our costs, that is all our costs. We tend to break these down into build costs and development costs, but for the sake of this video I've combined the two and saying it's just the one set of costs, and the balance of that then tells us what the land is valued. So no matter whether an estate agent says that that's worth 400,000, 200,000 in this example is the maximum that we would be able to prepared to pay for this piece of land. So let's look at a situation which is not viable. So the same value, same gross development value of 1.6 million, same profit margin of 400,000, so they don't change. But in this example, we're going to say that our build costs are significantly more. In other words, another 240,000. And what we can see here is that our land is actually worth a negative amount. In other words, it's £40,000. So even if, in order to make this project viable, the landowner would need to not only gift us their land, but also give us £40,000, because that 40,000 then comes out of your profit, and so therefore your development profit there is going to go down to 360,000, and that's assuming that you don't pay anything for the land, which significantly a landowner is not going to do. As I say, we've got a video, again there'll be a link up in the description for you to access that. What I want to do now is really talk about how we solve this issue. We'll get back to the video in just a moment. If you're really serious about creating a property development business, then I would suggest that the next next logical step for you would be to get a copy of my book, You a Property Developer. Simply go to the website of the same name, youapropertydeveloper.com. I'm going to cover the cost of the book. All I'm going to ask is that you contribute to the cost of the postage and packaging. Head over to youapropertydeveloper.com and pick up a copy now. And it's called, this is a thing that we give to our students when they enroll in our programs, and it's called the Viability Assessment Workbook. It's got many tabs, so what I want to concentrate in this particular video is just on the build cost. So what we've done here is we've taken an actual build and we've broken it down into every stage of that build. And so we have the description of the build, we have the labor quantity, in other words the amount of time it takes in minutes to be able to perform that particular task, the type of crew that we would have to do that. So sometimes it's a single person, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's three. So for instance, if you are applying block work to the house, usually there are 2 bricklayers and 1 labourer in order to service the labourers. They're making up the cement and doing a lot of the jobs, carrying the blocks to them. So there would be a crew rate, and then we also then have the materials themselves. Again, we work out the rate and the amount that would be in total. So all of these figures that are in green provide this cost for this particular house, and in this situation this house is about 138 square meters. So none of these figures actually get altered. Where the magic happens is in these 2 tabs here. So the first one is where we have the labor rates for the different crew members, and so what our students have to do is then go and research what the labor rates are in their area, because these will vary depending on which part of the country that you're in. We also have some plant there that they need to go and assess what these are, and then we have the materials where they have a listing here. We provide them with a non-priced spreadsheet, which they are then able to take to their local builders merchants, and they are able to then get pricing on the materials. So it gives them the quantities, so as that we're not just asking, so for instance for a cement block, if we just ask them for one block, the price would be significantly more than if we asked them for like 1,500, 2,000 blocks. So it gives them a realistic pricing. While I will say, if you're looking at any of these figures, these are hopelessly out of date. This was created almost 4 years ago, so that the figures certainly don't bear any resemblance to costs today. And what that does is, by changing these figures here, it then filters back into this and it makes the adjustments to those costs. What further then happens is that this is purely to do with the build costs themselves of the physical structure. It does not involve everything else which we would classify as development costs. So those things are like taking it through the planning process, having your architect put in drawings, bringing in your services such as gas, electricity, gas, electricity, and any other services that you're going to bring in there, to water disposal, water connection, water disposal. So those we classify as development costs. Now, within this program, you are able to assess that, you're able to assess your landscaping and all the other costs that don't apply to a particular house, but do contribute to the development. And at the end of the day, what you're looking to achieve is a figure that comes into the deal analysis, which then tells you what the land is worth. Now, in this particular situation, this was a fairly large development of 4.6 million, and we assessed in the initial assessment that it was 975,000 would be the most that we would pay for the land. But further to that, then we need to take into consideration design differences. So if a higher spec house would have a higher specification, and we have facilities within this program to make those adjustments. And indeed, there are about 56 other items that we check that can have a significant difference on the different costs that might be involved in that. So for instance, where the ground conditions might not support regular strip foundations, you might have to have trench foundations or even raft foundations. investigation. So there's various costs that would have a significant difference on the actual site itself. And so we go through 3 stages of this actual assessment. One is a desktop appraisal, which you're able to carry out in about 20 minutes using this program, and then you go into the further investigation, and you're able to make this assessment on a particular proposition until you actually start bringing in maybe some professionals to validate those figures, which is obviously going to cost you some money. So we're really looking to be able to establish, what is this a viable project in the first and second looks, and is it worth pursuing and spending some money on it to take it through to a negotiated deal. Hope you found that useful. If you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe, and if you want any further help, then please contact us, and there'll be a link just below. You can email me personally if you want at jim@builditandprosper.com, and I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. Take care, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye bye.